Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nada, and this is a new wig. I am coming at you today to talk about one of my favorite television series of all time. When I tell you that this show raised me, I'm being absolutely serious and also maybe raising a red flag for Child Protective Services. We are talking about Degrassi, The Next Generation. Cue the theme song! I'm literally so excited! If I'm looking down or looking to the side, it's because I have notes in my notebook and on my computer. Let me start from the beginning. My goal with this is for this to be a series on my channel called Everything That Happened In. I have enjoyed so much the videos of Michael Microphone, aka Mike's Mic, on this here YouTube website. I also spent an inordinate amount of time last week watching Carrie Can Read recap the entire first trilogy of The Mortal Instruments, and I'm rabid for her to start on the second trilogy. And I think the reason I like these videos is because I just like to talk, and I just like to listen to people talk. This series of videos is going to be about all of the TV shows, movies, literally whatever I want, book series that I feel like talking at length about. This first episode will be about Degrassi, as you can see from all of the people behind me. I did not have the energy, the time, or the string to turn this into an insane connected string board, but know that I dreamed of doing that and was too lazy to. We are just going to hop right into everything that happened in Degrassi, The Next Generation. So before we start with this beauty behind me, I just want to give you some background about Degrassi, the television show. This entire franchise started in 1979 as The Kids on Degrassi Street, which I think was a mini-series or a series of short 30-minute films that aired on CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Channel in Canada, in 1979. I'm a liar, it aired on CTV, Canadian Television, in 1979. And it was initially created by Linda Schuyler, who, I have a bone to pick with you, Miss Schuyler, but we'll talk about that later, Jan Moore, and Kit Hood. This series of short movies turned out to be incredibly popular, and it was noted for being one of the only series at the time to use actors who were close in age to the characters that they were playing in media that was about the lives of young people. You think about like Grease or Carrie or any really movies coming out in the 1970s about teenagers. It was this weird trend in the 70s where teenagers, there were like teen movies, so it was basically like softcore but set in a high school. I've heard of several of these and I've always found it incredibly weird, but all of the people in those movies were being played by adults because, you know, if they're gonna be naked, they need to be played by adults. When Degrassi comes around, they say, well, we want to tell stories about teens, but we want them to be stories that teens can actually relate to. Nobody is looking at Kaneki in Grease or, oh god, what's her name, who played Rizzo. Nobody is looking at Stockard Channing in Grease and saying that is a 16-year-old girl experiencing 16-year-old girl issues that I can relate to with my 16-year-old problems. And that also was part of the appeal of those movies and TV shows. Like, it was an analysis of a certain period of time and what youth culture was at that time, but it just wasn't relatable. So Linda and her team, Jan and Kit, said, hey, let's get together and make something that's relatable. That spawned into Degrassi Junior High, which first premiered in 1987, and Degrassi High, which premiered in 1989. And the first iteration of the franchise ended in 1992 with the scandalous, controversial film School's Out. It was really only scandalous and controversial because it, I think, included one of the first utterances of the word on Canadian national television. There's one character who's talking to her soon-to-be ex-boyfriend, and she's like, you f***ed Tessa Campanelli, and scandalous. People could not believe that teens really talk like that. I will preface this by saying I have never seen the entirety of Degrassi Junior High or Degrassi High. I did watch most of Schools Out when I was in middle school, in the throes of my Degrassi hyperfixation, which honestly has never ended. So I don't know as much about the characters of Degrassi High and Degrassi Junior High. I do know that a lot of them show up in Degrassi The Next Generation as like adults, guides, teachers, you know, just like people for the younger kids on the show to look up to. When we're talking about the 80s and early 90s iteration of this show, it was such a popular series, like I said earlier, because they were using youth actors to play these young characters, but also because it was groundbreaking in the material that it chose to address. Talking about youth issues from a youth perspective. And in a way, you can see a lot of the early episodes of Degrassi, The Next Generation, and Degrassi Junior High and Degrassi High as like glorified after school specials or like very special episodes in sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, because they were talking about all of these big issues like divorce and abuse and your first kiss and teen pregnancy, premarital sex, underage drinking, suicide, sexual assault, physical assault, abuse in interpersonal relationships between young people. And I think it's particularly of note that they were willing to tackle these subjects so openly in public, especially in the 80s and 90s, when we were living in a world where people didn't even really know that children could experience sexual abuse. That wasn't a widespread belief or understanding amongst the public. And we see the consequence of that with the satanic panic that happened in the late 80s and the early 90s, because the only way that people could really comprehend that there were large amounts of children who were being abused by members of their family and systematically silenced was to instead push that narrative of abusers off onto random strangers. Degrassi was willing to say, yes, children experience abuse, they experience pain, they experience complex emotions, and here is a portrayal of how they might work through them. So when we get to 2000, or the late 90s, early 2000s, Linda Schuyler is really excited about potentially rebooting the Degrassi High series. The positive is that in the original series, there was a baby born named Emma. Emma is the daughter of... Oh, this is Emma. Emma is the daughter of Christine Spike Nelson. She was called Spike because of her hair in the original series. I'll insert a picture here so you can see it. She earned that nickname. And she was born when Spike was 14 years old. As I said, they covered the topic of teen pregnancy. By 2001, her character would have been the perfect age to restart the entire Degrassi franchise. So we get a reboot of Degrassi High that centers around Emma, her mom, Spike, and some of the other older characters from the Degrassi High series. But then we also get an entire new array of teens and young adults who are going to tell us new stories about what it is like to grow up in the digital age. What I plan to do with this episode, I guess, is to go through each episode of season 1, because I want you to kind of get to understand who all of these characters are, get a feel for the story arcs that are coming up for them and the like issues that they are going to carry with them throughout the rest of the series. And then we can talk in seasons 2 and 3 more so about like the bigger 2-part episodes, the large story arcs that are going on, and gloss over some of the filler episodes that you get from a series that is produced in the early 2000s. We are going to start with one of the most iconic series premieres in the history of the world, Mother and Child Reunion. At that opening of Mother and Child Reunion, we meet Emma Nelson, who I mentioned previously, who is the only child of Christine Spike Nelson, and her best friend, Manuela Manny Santos, who is a bad bitch. Emma and Manny are in Emma's room at her desk on the internet talking to Emma's internet boyfriend, Jordan. Emma is like, Jordan's so cool. We like all the same things. He cares so much about all of the same things that I care about. And he is coming to Toronto soon. Oh yeah, all of this takes place in Toronto, Canada. He is coming to Toronto soon on like a school trip or whatever. Manny is like, oh, that's so cool that he's going to be in Toronto soon. And Emma's like, yeah, he asked me if I could go meet him, and I think I'm going to. And Manny's like, are you sure that's a good idea? I don't know if you should do that. But Emma's like, yeah, I know it's a good idea. He's my boyfriend. Jordan is so cool. I love him. What we'll learn about Emma over the course of this series is that, did you say she's delusional? Oh, I was going to say she's a dumb bitch, but yeah, both apply. So we kind of start the series understanding that this is a new generation of kids. So these kids are the first of the millennial generation. They're growing up with this new technology of the internet and computers in their houses, and they're seeing like the positives and potential drawbacks of using the internet. Emma and Manny are talking about this, but then Emma's mom comes in, and is that exactly how it goes? I don't know if this is exactly how it goes, but her mom comes in and reminds them that they need to help her set up for the 10-year high school reunion that she's having. Emma's mom is still really close with Caitlin, who is her best friend. Caitlin is up there in that corner. I just can't reach her. But Caitlin, who is one of her best friends from middle and high school, and Archie Snake Simpson, who is a teacher who still works at Degrassi. And Joey also lives nearby. So Joey and Snake are best friends from high school. Spike and Caitlin are best friends from high school, and Joey and Caitlin have some baggage between them, but we'll get to that when the time comes. There's this mixed reunion happening between the classes of 1990 and 1991 from Degrassi High School, and they need help setting it up, basically. Emma and Manny go to the school to help set it up, and they're really excited by the new computer lab at the school. This was a time when every school in America didn't just like have computers, I guess in Canada, but it is still America because it's part of North America. But they didn't just have computers in all of the classrooms. They didn't just have computer labs. So Degrassi got a special grant because it's a high achieving school or whatever to have this like state of the art computer lab, and they're really excited about it. Okay, yes. Okay, so Emma and Manny know JT from childhood. JT knows Toby from camp. Toby has just moved into the area because his dad has just married Ashley Kerman's mom. These are the 4 young ones that we meet in the first episode. And they decide that while they're in the computer lab, they're going to get on the computer, and Emma is going to talk to Jordan a little bit more. And she's telling them all about how Jordan is coming to Toronto soon on a school trip, and how he likes all the same things as her. Emma is what we would call nowadays a social justice warrior, but back then it was just called an Aquarius. She really cares about a lot of different issues. She's so into animal justice that she's a vegetarian. She cares a lot about the environment, sexism, all of these like pet projects that she has that kind of inform her personality and inform the decisions that she makes. And she's also a little self-righteous about all of those things. Part of the thing that she loves about Jordan is the fact that he loves all the same things that she does. They're in the computer lab on the computer, and Toby, who has a little crush on Emma, is like, are you sure this guy is really who he says he is? You know, anybody on the internet can lie. They can get a picture from anywhere and just say like, oh, this is me, a 12-year-old the same age as you, and stalk you and like try and come and kidnap you. And Emma is like, no, that's not the truth. Jordan loves me. I can't wait to go see him. JT points out that schools don't take field trips in the middle of the summer, so why would his school be on a field trip to Toronto? But Emma kind of yada yadas that away. Oh, also of note, Emma absolutely loves Caitlin, her mom's best friend, because Caitlin is this high-powered reporter in Toronto. She has her own show on TV, and she does investigative journalism, which is something that Emma wants to do. It's kind of funny to me because, like, I'm thinking about Emma and also Rory Gilmore. Was investigative journalism just the thing that everybody wanted to do in 2000? Like, if you had a fictional character, they wanted to be an investigative journalist? Or is that just me? Are there any other examples of that? Let me know. Other things of note for this first episode. We also meet Caitlin and Spike's other best friend from high school, Lucy Fernandez, who had been injured in a car accident in the original series, and she seems to be recovering well. And Joey and Caitlin reunite for the first time since the School's Out movie in 1992. So they pretty much haven't seen each other in 9 years. And this is because Joey cheated on Caitlin with that girl, Tessa Campanelli, and basically blew up their relationship that they had had. So that's the baggage of the older people, but let's get back into the juicy tea of the younger people. At the end of the first episode, when Emma is talking to Caitlin, she asks her if she should continue seeing this guy that she has a crush on, and Caitlin, not knowing that he is a person that she's never met in person before, is like, yeah, sometimes you just got to take a chance and go for things. So Emma is like, oh, I'm absolutely going to see Jordan tomorrow. The next day is the day of the Degrassi school reunion. Caitlin has brought her new fiance, Keith, who is also a journalist, I'm pretty sure, to the school reunion. While they're at the reunion, Caitlin goes off to like answer a work call or whatever, and Joey overhears Caitlin's fiance, Keith, talking to one of their former frenemies from high school about how he doesn't really want to marry Caitlin and he's not the marrying type of guy and he just proposed to get her off his back, and he's kind of like flirting with the girl to see if she'll go for it. So Joey is like, oh, this guy is bad news. Oh no. Then we go back to the main storyline, which is all about Emma. Emma has basically lied to everyone, specifically Manny, and said, oh, I'm not going to go see Jordan. It's just like not that important to me. I'm going to stay at home and watch TV, even though her and Manny were supposed to have a movie night while her mom was out. She tells Manny that and then secretly goes into the city to meet Jordan at a hotel. Now, I don't know if there's any 12-year-olds watching this. If there are, they probably shouldn't be. But if your internet boyfriend asks you to meet at a hotel where none of your parents will be, don't go to a hotel alone with someone who you've never met in person. And that goes for anybody who's of any age. You just don't do that. Maybe meet them in the daylight, in a well-lit location full of other people who can be witnesses, if anything were to happen. But this is 2001. People don't know about internet weirdos, so Emma is at this hotel waiting for Jordan, who is to come down, but Jordan's trip sponsor, I don't know what his name is, but Mr. What's-His-Face comes downstairs with a bunch of pizzas in his hands, and he's like, oh, you're Emma. Jordan was telling me all about you. He had this petition that he brought all the way from West Bumfuck, Canada, and he wants you to sign it and meet the rest of his classmates. Do you want to come up to the room? They're out right now, but they'll be back soon. Why they would be out without the sponsor / chaperone, I have no idea, but whatever. Emma is being taken up to this room, and Manny has not believed the conversation that she had with Emma. She's like, that bitch is not going to watch no wildlife refuge. She decided to go over to Emma's house and check on her. She wasn't there. She also wasn't answering her cell phone while Manny was calling her. She's like, she 100% went to go see Jordan. Where does she go? But Toby Isaac's house. Now, Toby is a computer genius, okay? He's so good at hacking and HTML, CSS, whatever. It's 2001. It can't be that difficult. Well, it probably was, but anyway. He is really good at that stuff, and JT is also there, and JT also knows Emma really well, so she's like, I don't know who else to talk to. Her mom is busy tonight. I think she went to go see this guy. Manny, Toby, and JT decide that they are all going to hack into Emma's email, figure out if they were meeting together, and if they are, where they're meeting so that they can go help Emma. Meanwhile, Emma has gone up to the hotel room with this weird man and his pizzas and notices that there's not really doesn't look like there's been any kids there for a while. There's no noise of children in either of the adjoining rooms as there would be if there were a bunch of kids on a school trip together. So she starts to get a little bit suspicious, especially since the guy, knows everything about her conversation. He's like, oh yeah, Jordan told me that you guys talked about this and that you guys talked about this. And she's like, how do you know all of this stuff about my conversations with Jordan? So she realizes that there is no Jordan. And the adult man who brought her upstairs to his hotel room is, in fact, Jordan, and tries to escape, but the hotel door is locked. Blessedly, right next to the hotel door is the bathroom. So she's able to barricade herself in the bathroom as Jordan tries to bust his way in. So she's barricaded herself in the bathroom. She's freaking out. She's like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. How did I believe this guy? He is talking to her through the door and he's like, it's okay. I understand that you're freaked out. You were expecting someone completely different. I'm going to go downstairs for a while. You stay here. You can leave if you want to leave. I just don't want to freak you out. So he opens and closes the door, doesn't leave. She waits a few minutes after he's opened and closed the door, and then finally decides to get out of the bathroom. Well, wouldn't you believe that the man who lied to her about his entire existence on the internet to trick her into a hotel room was also lying about the fact that he left and that she could leave whenever she wanted. He slams the bathroom door and tells her it'll be over before she knows it, and he's setting up a camera in the corner. We cut back to the reunion, where Caitlin, who is the most famous graduate of Degrassi High, is giving a speech about her life and how Degrassi changed it and gave her all of these tools to succeed, yada yada yada. So she's giving a speech. Joey tries to confront her fiance about him lying about wanting to get married. Her fiance is like, yo, step off, man. And then they get into a fight, and Joey ruins Caitlin's moment, as per usual. Caitlin realizes that Keith never wanted to marry her. She initially is like, I don't believe you, Joey. You're just saying this because you cheated on me 10 years ago and you want to ruin my life. The girl who Keith was flirting with is like, no, that actually happened. So Caitlin is humiliated and she runs out. But positively, her and Joey are able to bury the hatchet. While this is all happening at the reunion, Manny, Toby, and JT are breaking into Emma's blog and breaking into her email. They find it surprisingly easy to answer the secret password questions in her email, and they realize that what most likely happened is that Jordan, quote unquote, broke into her email, figured out all of the stuff that she liked. He probably saw her picture on the blog or something, figured out all of the stuff that she liked, did research into it, and then prepared this persona as a 12-year-old who was her perfect match. They also find out that Emma is planning to meet Jordan, so they run over to the school to get her mom so that her mom can go save Emma. They get to Degrassi and they're frantically explaining to Spike and Mr. Simpson, Snake, that Emma has gone off to meet some random internet stranger who has clearly been pretending to be a 12-year-old boy who is her perfect match, and she's at a hotel downtown. Spike is rightfully freaking out, but Snake is like, it's okay, I'll take you, let's go. And on the way, they call the police. This is all while he is.
I misremembered this part so horribly. So basically what happens is the nasty man is making advances towards Emma, and her mom and Spike are running in, her mom and Snake are running into the hotel to save her. Emma is able to do this really cool backflip out of the room and run to the door to her mom and Snake. And she's super freaked out. She doesn't want anyone to touch her. But then the guy comes to the door and he's like, this must be some horrible misunderstanding. Snake pulls him out and restrains him until the police get there, and the ordeal is over and no one has been sex trafficked.
Spike is rightfully freaking out and she's like, I can't believe that something like this happened. Emma was fully on the internet talking to a repeat child predator. And Emma is just like, well, I'm young. You don't get it anymore, Mom. But then Spike is able to reassure her that she does, in fact, understand what it is like to be a child. And we know she understands that because we watched her grow up on television. And they hug and cry together about the ordeal that they've been through. This first episode is a really great introduction, I feel like, to most of these characters. We get to see some of the older characters, the young people like me who had no idea that this was a reboot of a television show. We get to see some of the older characters and understand who they are, where they're coming from, the interpersonal dynamics between them. We also get to know the core four of the younger generation of people who are then also going to be interacting with this older generation of people. Something that I forgot to mention too is that during the Degrassi reunion, Lucy Fernandez, who is friends with Spike and Caitlin, saw one of her old friends from high school, Wheels. So I'm pretty sure they called him Wheels because his name was Derek Wheeler and he would always be riding a bicycle everywhere. And he had gotten into a drunk driving accident at the end of the original Degrassi show run and injured Lucy to the point where she was blind in one eye, I'm pretty sure, and killed a small child. He finally is able to see her and they talk and reconcile, and it is a nice closure for people who are fans of Degrassi Junior High. We're next going to get into the third episode of Degrassi, which is when we start to get to know the older kids on the series. We don't really have to get into this too much, but basically we meet Ashley Kerwin, who is Toby's stepsister. Their parents have recently gotten married over the summer, and that's why Toby lives nearby now. We meet her best friend from childhood, Terry McGregor, and their best friend from childhood, Miss Paige, as well as Ashley's boyfriend, basketball star Jimmy. Yes, that is Drake. And Jimmy's best friend, Spinner, who is called that because he has ADHD and never knows how to set the down. Paige's opening line, which is one of the most iconic on the entire series, where she walks up to the girlies in this perfect early 2000s fit. Like, this is how the girls on TikTok look, okay? And she says,
"For my life."
Hey guys, haven't seen you all summer. How are you doing?
Paige?
New year, new look, new page.
New year, new look, new Paige. Paige is super into the kind of superficial side of things. She really wants to be the most popular girl at school. She wants to be the most well-liked. She wants to be dating the hottest guys, all of that. Whereas Ashley is your classic overachiever. In this third episode, she is running for student council president. And Terry is just kind of like the sweet girl who is the linchpin between these two. Because really, Ashley and Terry don't like Paige that much because she's kind of a bitch. But they tolerate her because they're all popular and they're all like on the same tier. And Terry likes Paige a little bit more than Ashley does. But it's kind of like a tenuous alliance that they have going. But as I mentioned, Ashley is running for student council president. Toby hates Ashley, so he basically is like, you know who's going to run against you? JT, my best friend, who is incredibly charismatic and funny. He is the class clown. We also meet Liberty Van Zant, who has a massive crush on JT, and she is basically the 7th grade equivalent of Ashley. Like, she's super smart, very high achieving, overachieving, in fact, and she wants to be the baddest bitch at Degrassi, and she is. She's also the only black female character that we have on this season. So Toby decides to run JT against Ashley to thwart her because she's like the typical princess and she always gets what she wants. And they have this whole like contrived conversation about, you know, we didn't choose to be family, but we can be nice to each other since we're in this situation. And they eventually learn to get along, and JT drops out of the race and Ashley becomes student council president. Also of note in this episode is that Manny and Emma at their first day of middle school are being bullied by Spinner because he is an 8th grader and they are 7th graders, and they are able to resolve that by the end of the episode. Okay, so in the next episode we get the first major storyline for my queen, Terry McGregor. This is the first nighttime dance at Degrassi, which is a big deal when you're 12 years old. And Terry is like, nobody's gonna want to go with me because I'm fat. Paige is basically like, yeah. But Ashley is like, no, it's okay, you know, like, I think somebody will want to go with you. But Ashley is already dating Jimmy, so she's got a date on lock, and Paige is skinny and popular, so she doesn't really have anything to worry about. What Terry doesn't know, though, is that Spinner is holding a little candle for her, and he has a cute little crush on her. Spinner ends up asking Terry to go to the dance with him, but Paige is jealous because Paige has always had a crush on Spinner, and she wants him for herself. So I'll leave that there. We'll go into the B plot. The B plot is that Emma wants to go to the dance too, but Manny can't come with her because Manny's parents are really strict and they won't let her go to a nighttime dance at school. Emma is like, I guess I have to go alone, but that would fucking suck. So she's hoping to maybe go with JT and Toby, but JT and Toby have decided that they're going to stay home and look at some internet porn. They're 12-year-old boys. They're stupid. Everyone is getting ready to go to the dance. They're all super excited. Ashley, Terry, and Paige are getting ready at Ashley's house, and Paige decides that it would be a good idea to slip Terry some liquid courage. She gives her a little bit of schnapp, you know, to loosen her up, spirits, and make her feel less nervous, because this is Terry's first date. Like, nobody's ever asked her out. Nobody's ever shown any interest in her. Paige is like, oh, that's okay. I'll help you. I'll give you this alcohol so that you'll feel better. Terry is 13. 13-year-olds can hold a lot, but not liquor. Terry gets to the dance and she's drunk, obviously, but Spinner is like, this is fine, I guess. You know, I can make this work. And they get to dancing. Meanwhile, at home, JT and Toby are looking at internet porn, and then Toby's parents come home and they have to have a hard conversation with them about what is and isn't appropriate for people at their age. None of that's important. What is important is that at the dance, Terry ends up totally humiliating herself because she's way too drunk, and she's dancing with Spinner and steps on his toes and is stumbling around and ends up running to the bathroom to throw up. While she's in the bathroom vomiting, Paige decides that it's the perfect time to swoop in and get her dance with Spinner. So she's effectively stolen Spinner from Terry by sabotaging Terry and getting her drunk. Oh, I think Paige also convinced her that she was also going to be drinking, so that's why Terry felt more comfortable doing it, but it turned out that Paige didn't have any. She just wanted to over Terry. Emma has decided that she's gonna go to the dance alone because she's like, I have to have fun. So she goes to the dance alone. Who does she meet? Mr. Sean. The way I loved this man when I was a child. The way I loved him. The way I love him today. So Emma goes to the dance and she ends up talking to Sean Cameron, who is the new kid in school. He's recently moved to Toronto from Wasaga Beach, and he is a little bit grumpy at this dance because he has had to repeat the 7th grade because of an incident that happened at the end of his 7th grade year when he was at home, but nobody really knows what it is. Emma meets Sean, and he's initially like a little bit bristly towards her, but then eventually he starts to warm up to her, and they spend some time together, they have some laughs, and they end up sharing a dance. There had also like been a rumor that like Sean was scary and violent and he was in a gang or whatever because he was poor, but Emma's like, he's actually kind of cool. Like, he's just a boy who is small. This is Emma and Sean's first interaction. The next day, Terry is at school waiting, and she's hungover, obviously, and she's so embarrassed about what she's done. She's so embarrassed about getting drunk and throwing up on Spinner, and she just went home. She didn't even get the chance to really say goodbye to him, and he comes up to her and says hi and kind of is like super awkward, but Paige sees them talking from far away, and she like sidles up to Spinner and she's like, hey babe, and basically lets Terry know that after she ran out of the dance last night, Paige was macking on Spinner. So Paige has proven herself to be a stupid, evil bitch and stolen one of her best friend's crushes by sabotaging her on her first ever romantic outing. Okay, so the next episode is Parents' Day. All the parents come to the school, blah, blah, blah. Toby's parents are divorced. They always fight and embarrass him. But his mom is a modeling agent or something, so Ashley and Paige are fighting to get a modeling contract with her. Shocker, neither of them do. I'm pretty sure Terry ends up getting the modeling contract, which is like pulling in the real life aspect of Christina Schmidt, who was a plus size model. The other thing that's going on in the next episode is that Emma has written an op-ed about the news at the school, which is this corporate sponsored news that gives students ads about like unhealthy food and games and all of these things that are unhealthy for young people to be indulging too much in. And Emma is like, this is not good. But Mr. Radich, who is the principal of Degrassi, says, well, they paid for the computers in the computer lab and in exchange for us playing their news in the mornings. Emma is fighting about it. While her and her mom are at Parents' Day, she sees Sean and his brother, and Sean's brother is talking about how dumb her article is, and Emma's like, it's not. You just don't get it because you don't understand bias. Like, you don't understand the argument that I'm making. And Sean's brother ends up yelling at her about how Sean doesn't have a computer at home like she does. Like, not everybody has the same privileges as her. And they basically just, like, get into an argument about their opinions. Not a good first impression for Sean's brother to have about the girl that he has a crush on, or for Emma's mom to have about the brother of the boy that she has a crush on. But it ends up all getting resolved because Emma apologizes to Sean for yelling at his brother. Sean apologizes to her for how his brother acted. He tells her that he liked her article. Yay, kumbaya. Next episode, Ashley and Jimmy are celebrating their 8-month anniversary. 8 months is a long time when you're 13 years old. So Ashley is like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to celebrate the occasion. And while they're in English class, they're also doing the play Romeo and Juliet, except that Ashley wasn't cast as Juliet to Jimmy's Romeo. Paige was cast as Juliet. Since Paige has a track record with stealing friends' crushes / boyfriends, what she did to Terry, Ashley is worried that being in such close proximity together, Jimmy is going to end up leaving her for Paige. So what is Ashley's solution to this issue? We The two 13-year-olds need to have sex. Dr. Sally comes to the school, gives the 8th graders the sex talk, and she's very blunt about what goes on. And everyone is super embarrassed because they're 13, and Ashley is a little bit concerned that she's not ready yet, but she's still really worried about Paige swooping in and taking her man. So she tries to convince herself that it'll be okay. Meanwhile, Jimmy and Spinner are going to the pharmacy to get some condoms. Jimmy goes over to Ashley's house at night, and they are in her room getting ready to do the deed, but then she starts freaking out and goes to the bathroom and tries to give herself a pep talk to get herself ready to do it. And finally she goes out and she's like, I can't do this. And Jimmy is like, thank fucking God, because neither can I. And this is why 13-year-olds do not have sex. We've gotten to this phase of shooting children. I always forget how much energy shooting something where I'm explaining something for a really long time takes. But that's what wine's for. So we left off at season 1, episode 6, when Ashley thinks that it's a good idea to have sex at 13, and then realizes, actually, no, that's not a fucking good idea. It's always the ones who are supposed to be the smart girls who act the most like their heads are empty. We're gonna yada yada over some of these episodes because it's fun. I love this show, but if you want to watch it, you can go ahead and watch it. I just really want to hit the major plot points. The next episode, really the only important thing to know is that Jimmy really wants to make the basketball team. It's super important to him because he's black. The plot lines that the black characters on the show get are so, disrespectful and nonsensical, but whatever. So Jimmy really wants to be on the basketball team. That's, his big thing. But his grades are slipping as he is training to be on the basketball team. And so he asks Spinner for some of Spinner's ADHD medicine. Spinner's like, okay, here's a couple. And it's helpful because it helps him stay up long enough to be able to do his homework and have enough energy to be on the basketball team. But Jimmy doesn't have ADHD, so it also is something that he's not supposed to be taking. So he is basically on amphetamines, and he starts to get super aggressive. They're doing a basketball scrimmage in class, and he is playing against Sean, and he purposefully fouls Sean to make a shot. And from this point on, Jimmy and Sean kind of have problems with one another, especially also because Sean is from the wrong side of the tracks and Jimmy's family is super rich. Oh, and this is also the episode where Liberty tries to usurp Ashley's throne, but quickly realizes that she's a little bit out of her depth and gets put in her place because she is trying to do the morning announcements that Ashley does. But she doesn't quite have the Ashley's poise and charisma. She has Ashley's smarts, but she's not as good with people as Ashley is. So she freezes on camera, and Ashley is like, I told you so. But moving forward, Ashley gives Liberty more credit because Liberty is the one who writes all the announcements for Ashley. So he tries to plant, and nobody believes him that he found a bug in his lunch, so he tries to plant one in Ashley's lunch, but somebody sees him do it, and also it's not a bug that makes sense to be in someone's lunch. He ends up getting in trouble, and he gets lunch duty, and we see him doing lunch duty for a while throughout the series. The next episode is one of my favorites! So first we must go back to Miss Ashley Kerwin, aka the HBIC of Degrassi Junior High. Ashley's, as we said at the beginning, mom has married Toby's dad because her parents got divorced earlier. Her dad is finally coming back from Europe. He had been living in Europe for a while whenever his marriage dissolved, and Ashley is hoping that if her dad can come back from Europe and just spend enough time with her mom, they'll fall back in love and they'll get married again because the divorce was very traumatic for her. Whereas Toby is like, I'm really glad my parents got divorced because they were not good together, and also your mom and my dad make a lot more sense than my mom and my dad made. But Ashley is still stuck on the idea of her parents getting back together. So when her dad comes in from Europe, she's trying to set him up. So Ashley's goal in this episode basically is to create a situation in which her parents will want to get back together. Her mom has insinuated to her, she's basically been asking her throughout the episode, she's like, has your dad said anything to you? Has he explained anything to you? And she's like, no, he hasn't talked to me about anything. This is also, I want to mention, the episode where we learn that Terry's mom passed away. So Terry has this little locket that she wears with her dad's picture and her mom's picture in it, and we learn that her mom passed away when she was really really young. Of course, everything's about Ashley and Ashley's world, so we come back to Ashley eventually, and Ashley thinks that her mom is asking her these questions because her mom is trying to tell her that her parents are going to get back together. So we also learn that Ashley's dad is a war correspondent, so he travels the world a lot, and she thinks her parents separated because of his job, because he just like had to move to Europe for his job. While all of this is happening, we are in the grade 7 class with Liberty, whose giant crush on JT is getting bigger and bigger. She is always staring at him and making jokes and laughing super loud when he talks, and JT is terrified. He hates the fact that Liberty has a crush on her. He's like, she's such a loser, she's chubby, she's not pretty like the other girls in the class. He just kind of wishes that literally anybody else could have a crush on him. And tell me this isn't a mirror of my middle school experience. Me, beautiful, fun, funny, smart, black girl. Literally any stupid little scrawny little white boy who made a joke that I found funny. Hyperfixation, baby, obsession, madly in love with them. And what do? Blech. Disgusting. I couldn't date you. That would be miscegenation. So he's not into it at all. But I know you two are getting back together and you just didn't want to say anything because Toby's dad is going to be heartbroken, blah, 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 whatever. She's not realizing that her mom is fully married to another person. She's not just going to, like... Getting divorced takes so much time and effort, especially in Commonwealth countries, I've learned. Like, Canada, Australia, England, they all have really strict laws about divorce. Her mom is not going to go through all of the effort to get divorced just because her husband, who abandoned her and her child to move to Europe, as far as Ashley knows, for this, like, correspondent job, has returned. Like, the people whose husbands go away to war don't get married while their husbands are gone. And then when their husbands come back, they're like, oh yeah, you're back now. Let me get divorced so that we can get married again. But she's 13. She's not like thinking the way that she's supposed to be. So she's like, oh my God, I know you guys are getting back together. And her mom is like, no, we're not getting back together. Your dad has to tell you this himself. But Ashley's like, okay, what could it possibly be if you're not getting back together? And that is when her mom finally tells her that her dad is gay. And that's why they got divorced. Miss Kerwin, she is shooketh.
Well, then what? Is he gay? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Ash, there are things your dad and I should have talked to you about a long time ago.
Mom, I was joking.
It's not a joke. Your dad is gay.
She's so, like, horrified to hear this. And thinking back to, like, how groundbreaking this series was, I can't think of another TV show except Friends, really, where somebody's parent was gay. Honestly, not even Friends, because on Friends it was just a joke, but like where somebody's parent was gay, realized they were gay after being in a heterosexual marriage, and it wasn't treated as like a joke or something disgusting. They weren't derided for abandoning their family. It's just like, this is a matter of fact. This is a part of this kid's life now because that's her dad, and we're going to follow her as she grapples with this. The other thing too is, like, this is 2001. She's a 13-year-old girl. People didn't talk that openly about LGBTQ plus issues. So her being horrified by this news, I honestly feel like, especially as a straight woman herself, who never, as far as I know, has any moment where she's questioning her sexuality in the show, is like not surprising, because it completely has shaken how she thinks of her dad. And Ashley gets a little homophobic, as we see going forward in this episode. He basically has this attitude, this mindset of like, he should have just sucked it up and stayed with us and pretended, because it absolutely was not essential for him to go off and live this homosexual lifestyle that he's living. She's thinking like, he abandoned me for this like whim that he had, when in reality, like, he probably wouldn't have survived very long staying with his family. Ashley's really angry learning about this news, and she's at lunch with Paige and Terry, and Paige is like, you know, I was thinking about it, because Paige asks her, she's like, so did your mom tell you that your parents are getting back together? And Ashley's like, no, they're not. And then Paige is like, you know, I was thinking about it, and if your parents aren't getting back together and he hasn't had a girlfriend in a while, have you thought that maybe he could be gay? And Ashley basically calls her a stupid gutter snatch whore bitch, and it's like, mind your own business, you dumb. I think she's thinking in her head, like, she's saying that to get at me because Paige is always super smug and mean. Honestly, she's like bitchy to everyone. So she thinks that Paige is trying to make a joke about the whole situation. But then when she gets up and storms off, Paige turns to Terry and she's like, well, my brother is gay. So I just thought that, like, maybe, you know, he's not interested in this woman that he has a child with. He hasn't had a girlfriend in a while. Like, there's a possibility that he could be gay. And she's basically just saying, like, this is one moment where Paige is actually genuinely just trying to help, and Ashley absolutely bites her head off. Liberty is still obsessed with JT through this whole thing, and Toby has told JT that Ashley's dad is gay. So JT gets the idea in his head, let me just pretend to be gay so that Liberty will leave me alone. So he decides to tell Liberty that he is gay. He, like, takes her under the stairs and he's like, I have to tell you something, like, I have to confess, I just want you to know the truth because I know how much you like me. He's like, I'm gay. Instead of Liberty being put off by this completely and disgusted as he expected, she's like, oh my god, I know how hard it is for people who are gay. I'm going to be the number one ally. Like, Liberty is the type of bitch who will work to be the best at anything she can possibly be the best at. So when he tells her that he's gay, she's like, oh, so this is a challenge. You're asking me if I can be the best ally to the LGBTQ community that has ever allied. She proceeds to start doing that. So she's basically becomes his bodyguard, and she starts defending him because anytime he does something, or when somebody's making a joke about him or anything that he's doing in class, she is like, don't talk to him like that. Leave him alone. Discriminate against people like this. And Liberty also has taken it upon herself to write an article for the school newspaper, The Grapevine, about being gay and how it's okay to be gay. JT, after she's being so nice to him after learning this secret about him, and he finally starts to feel bad because he's like, oh, I mean, she is annoying, but she also is, like, actually kind of a good person. He finally confesses that he's not really gay, and Liberty is crushed. She's like, if you didn't want to go out with me, you should have just said that. You, like, didn't have to pretend to be gay. And I get her here because this exact same thing happened to me when I was in the 6th grade. I had a huge crush on this boy. I'm fairly certain that I was obvious about it because I can't hide anything for shit. We were sitting in our 6th grade English class. It was me, him, and one of my best friends. And he was talking about how he's gay. He's like, yeah, you know, I just, like, don't like girls. And I was like, that's not fucking true. I know you have a crush on this other girl that's in our class. And I knew he was lying because he didn't want me to have a crush on him anymore. And it honestly just hurt my feelings. I was like, okay, you know I have a crush on you. I'm being super obvious about it. If it's making you, and I know, like, being in the 6th grade, 7th grade, it's hard to say this, but, like, if it's making you so uncomfortable, you could just say that, or just say nothing. Anyways, it's mean. It's mean to pretend to be gay to get someone to not have a crush on you anymore. You could just, and it's also like, am I so disgusting that you feel like you have to pretend to be homosexual in order for me to not be interested in you? I'm not a troll that lives under a bridge. I'm a human woman. I know how to take a hint, okay? So, yeah. That is that storyline. Liberty's really hurt. JT ends up apologizing to her, and they kind of are able to start from scratch. Meanwhile, Ashley is still reeling from the news that her father is gay, goes home, and her dad is there. And initially, Ashley is, like, resistant to talking to him about the situation, but he's finally able to explain to her that, like, he did love her mom, he did love her, he loves her so much, but continuing to be in a heterosexual relationship when he was not heterosexual was eventually going to kill him. He doesn't say those things, but, like, that's just the truth. He apologizes to her for lying to her. So they're talking, and he also tells Ashley that he had a boyfriend. Like, he had met somebody, and his boyfriend is a person who he moved to Europe to be with, who he's been living with for the past few years. She thought that this was just his roommate or whatever. She's really hurt and disgusted that he abandoned his family in her mind to go be with this person that he had cheated on her mother with. So the next day at school, she's talking to Terry, and Terry's like, how did it go? And Ashley is like, I'm cutting my dad out. He abandoned my family to go be with this guy, and he's a horrible person, and I hate him. And Terry is like, you don't want to do that. And Ashley's like, I want to do whatever I want to do. Like, if I said I want to do it, then I'm gonna do it. And then Terry basically just guilts her, and she's like, one of my parents is dead, and I didn't have a choice in whether or not they were going to be in my life. You actively choosing to sever ties with a living member of your family is only going to end up hurting you in the long run. And so Ashley finally realizes that being headstrong and steadfast is not going to work to her benefit, so she decides that she is willing to forgive her dad. It's going to take time, but she's willing to do it. Ooh. And the next episode is also super iconic. Okay, basically summing up the A plot in a nutshell, Jimmy's parents are super rich and neglectful and they don't take care of him. So he starts spending a lot of time at Ashley's house. Ashley starts to feel smothered by Jimmy. She's like, I need some space, bro. You are at my house every single night. So she's thinking about breaking up with him, but then instead of breaking up with him, she just has a conversation with him and she's like, look, I know it's hard for you to be alone at home, but I need you to back off a little bit. Like, you're spending way too much time with me and I just, like, need some space. So they resolve this whole situation. The plot in the episode is that Emma has started to have a lot of mood swings. She's being mean and feeling sad, and she doesn't exactly know what's going on. She thinks like maybe she's sick or she's like having some sort of mental breakdown, but no, none of that is happening. She gets her first period in a white skirt in the 7th grade. During a school day. And Manny sees it and she's like, oh my god, Emma, you just got your period. So Manny covers her up. She goes to the nurse, gets some like oversized basketball shorts, because I don't know if you can tell, but Miriam McDonald is teeny tiny. So probably any basketball shorts from the Lost and Found would be super big on her. She's in class about to give a presentation and everybody is making fun of her oversized clothing as though people didn't wear Jenko jeans in the late 90s. Like, come on. She finally has to just say, actually, I just got my period. For the first time, menstruation happens to about, 50% of the population. Perfectly normal and nothing to be ashamed about. Now, can I finish my presentation? And she finishes her presentation and she's initially, like, previously had been super embarrassed about getting her period at school and she was like, nobody can know. But then she had, like, a nice little chat with Paige in the girls' bathroom and Paige gave her a pad. And she says this in front of Sean and Sean is like, wait, that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that she just, like, shut these nerds down. So that is the episode coming of age. Then we have some of the fallout of Emma's PTSD over almost being affected by an internet predator. But we also meet one of the most iconic characters in the series, Miss Hazel Aden. Ooh! Hazel essentially exists to be Paige's sidekick. But on the bright side, we get another black person, and she gets one storyline that is actually really affecting and one of the most memorable storylines on Degrassi. So, in the next episode, Emma somehow has decided, because this is always lurking, okay? Like, she is the queen of lurking. That's why I chose this picture of her staring through a window, because, like, watching people is her specialty. She is watching Liberty and the gym, but also math teacher, Mr. Armstrong. She's like, they're getting really close. They're spending a lot of time together. She's talking to Manny about it. And Manny's like, yeah, well, he's a teacher, so that's probably why. But Emma, who is traumatized from being preyed on by an adult man, is like, no, I bet they're having a secret relationship. So she starts a rumor in the school that Liberty is having a secret relationship with Mr. Armstrong. And right as the rumor, like, reaches its pinnacle and Liberty is getting really embarrassed because everybody assumes that she's dating a 35-year-old man, which is so weird. Liberty tells Emma that the reason that she's spending so much time with the math teacher is because she has dyscalculia, which is essentially dyslexia but with numbers. And Emma's like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. And right as Mr. Radich is going to go confront Mr. Armstrong about this rumor, Emma is like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I started this rumor because I was worried about Liberty, but the truth is they're just doing tutoring session. And Emma ends up getting in trouble instead of Liberty because literally nothing was going on. She was just being absolutely paranoid. While this is happening, Spinner finds a bug in his lunch and he starts to become obsessed about the hygienic standards of the cafeteria at Degrassi. Next, we have another one of my faves, which is Emma and Sean's first date. This one, Friday night, it's just kind of like a cute little filler episode. Well, cute on one half, incredibly sad on another half. So, in the 8th grade class, Jimmy and Spinner are really being reamed by their English teacher, Miss Kwan, another icon, who's in the show for like most of the seasons. She just like suddenly starts to be irritable. She's being mean to people. She's things that you used to be able to do, you can't get away with anymore all of a sudden. Like Spinner has ADHD, so he like does a lot of like tapping and shaking. He can't quite sit still, and she's just yelling at him all the time. So they've decided that they're going to get revenge on her. And it is a series of escalating pranks that starts with something as simple as ordering a bunch of pizza and wings to the class and ends in them egging her car that just kind of like push her over the edge. And she's like, why does all of this horrible shit keep happening to me? And it's clear that there's something more going on with her than they initially thought. They just thought that she was being mean to them for no reason. And they see her crying over her egg-covered car, and they're like, oh God, we fucked up. So it's really sad that they broke the will of a woman who's just trying to like teach them how to write proper sentences and understand what a past participle is. But they are also eventually able to apologize to her and reconcile, and they learn that Miss Kwan's husband has recently been deployed to the Middle East. So she's just been like very stressed out because she didn't know that the deployment was happening. She thought that he was going to be able to stay for a lot longer. So they are sorry for what they've done to her. A nice little happy ending. And she always has a contentious relationship with Finner, but there's like a grudging respect between them. On the 7th grader side of things, Emma and Sean go on their first date. He comes over and picks her up. Initially she's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if this is just like a friend thing or a date thing. And then she goes to Paige, her adult women problem savant, because like the last episode Paige gave her a pad. She's like, what's going on? And Paige is like, this is definitely a date. You're going out on Friday night and it's just the two of you. So a whole bunch of things go wrong. It's just a series of unfortunate events. And Emma is like, he's never going to want to see me again. But then at school the next day, Sean comes up to her and he's like, that was so much fun. I can't wait for us to go on our next date. Next up, we're getting another linchpin of like plot line for the rest of the series. We have the episode Wannabe, where Paige and Hazel have decided that they are going to start a spirit squad. But Emma is like, spirit squads are sexist because you're just like a bunch of girls cheering for guys. However, Manny, who's Emma's best friend, is super athletic and flexible. She's like a dancer and a gymnast or whatever. So she wants to be on the spirit squad with Paige and Hazel. And she also is like, she cares a lot more about popularity and whatnot than Emma does. Emma is more morals gal, whereas Manny just really wants people to like her. So Manny is super excited about trying out for the spirit squad, but Emma is really against it, initially because of the sexism thing, but also because she feels like Paige and Hazel are stealing her best friend. Emma decides that she is going to write an op-ed in the Grapevine about how cheerleading is sexist. But Paige and Hazel have not gotten the spirit squad approved by Mr. Radich, the principal, yet. So they're afraid that Emma's op-ed is going to throw them off course and basically thwart their mission of getting the spirit squad started. So they start to hang out with Manny because they think in their minds, if we can get closer to Manny, we can get Manny to convince Emma that writing the article isn't a good idea. This picture of Emma is actually from this episode, Wannabe, because she's looking through the gym at Manny at Spirit Squad practice with Hazel and Paige and the other girls who are on the team, and Manny's like doing back handsprings and front walkovers and whatever. And Emma's like, Manny used to be my best friend, but now she just wants to be a cheerleader. Meh. So Emma's still kind of like on the fence about whether she's going to write the article or not. But then one night when Emma and Manny are supposed to get together to study, Manny decides to blow Emma off and hang out with Paige and Hazel at her house. But lo and behold, who calls while Paige and Hazel are over at Manny's house? Emma. And Manny tries to shut up Hazel and Paige because she's like, I don't want Emma to know that I'm blowing her off, but still hanging out with you guys. Paige and Hazel are like, you have to convince Emma not to write the op-ed. So Manny's on the phone trying to convince Emma not to write the op-ed. Emma, of course, is on speakerphone. Maybe she's not on speakerphone. They can just hear her or whatever. And Emma's like, no, I think I'm going to do it. Like, she's still kind of like, I don't know. She's like, no, I think I'm going to do it. Paige starts making fun of Emma, and Emma hears Paige making fun of her, and she's like, is that Paige in the background? Like, I thought you said you were sick and that's why we couldn't study. Manny apologizes and she's like, I'm sorry, I lied, but I'll be over as soon as they leave. And Emma's like, don't bother, and gets to work writing her op-ed. She writes it. It's published in the Grapevine. She writes it, she shows it to Manny, and Manny is like, you're just trying to ruin everything. Paige and Hazel are super pissed about it, but she's like giving Manny one last chance, and Manny kind of just like blows her off or whatever. Manny and Emma got into a huge fight in the bathroom after Emma showed Manny the like first run copy of the op-ed, and Manny utters the first instance of her iconic line that she says multiple times across the series.
You honestly think Paige is your friend? Is that so hard to believe? That for once someone cool likes me?
She's just using you, Manny.
No, you're just jealous.
She's like, you're just jealous that I'm friends with 8th graders and you're just a loser who writes for the Grapevine. This is me making my case that Emma is an Aquarius and Manny is a Leo, and that's part of why they have so many conflicts over the course of the series. All of the best friend pairs in this show have a lot of conflicts, some bigger than others, but Emma and Manny's conflicts really seem to stem from the fact that Emma is very group-driven, cause-driven, humanitarianly oriented, whereas Manny cares a lot more about her reputation, herself, how she shows up in the world, being the center of attention and whatnot. And that's a thing that I think people kind of discount about Aquarius and Leo because they're opposite signs. Aquariuses, to me at least, care just as much about being the center of attention. They just want to be the center of attention of a cause that they care about. Whereas Leos want to be the center of attention regardless of what the morals, scruples, boundaries, whatever are on what they're doing. I do really think that Emma and Manny are that Leo and Aquarius best friend pair that always fight. So Emma decides to publish it. It's published in the Grapevine. When Manny is walking down the hall, she sees Paige and Hazel carrying 2 giant stacks of Grapevine issues. Manny's like, why do you guys have the school newspaper? They take them to the gym and they're like, well, we're just doing a little editorial work. They have unilaterally decided that they are going to rip Emma's op-ed out of all of the issues of the Grapevine so nobody can see it. Initially, Manny is like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, she worked really hard on it, and journalism is kind of the thing that she wants to do with her life. But then they're like, you have to choose between us or her. And so Manny rips an article out of the Grapevine. Fine. The next day, Mr. Radich and Mr. Simpson come up to Manny and Paige in the media immersion lab, and they're like, excuse me, could you guys explain why all of the op-eds about how a Spirit Squad isn't good were mysteriously torn out of the Grapevine? Manny's like, oh. And Paige immediately says, we don't know, but we saw Hazel being really suspicious with a bunch of issues of the Grapevine. So, of course, the white girl pawns it all off on the black girl because racism will get you very far. And they learn that fairly young. She puts it all on Hazel, and Manny is like, what? But she still co-signs. Then later on, when they're in the hallway, Manny is talking to Paige and she's like, why did you throw Hazel under the bus? She's supposed to be your best friend. And Paige is like, well, it was either her or us. Like, do you want the Spirit Squad to happen or not? They're in the hallway and Manny has had enough of Paige's BS. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to tell Mr. Simpson and Mr. Radich the truth, that it was all 3 of us who did this to get Hazel off the hook, and also for them to reprint the Grapevine so that Emma's article can be read by people. And Paige is like, you are ruining everything. What the hell is wrong with you? If you tell them that it was all 3 of us, I'm going to tell them that you did it by yourself. And Manny says, well, you're the one whose story keeps changing, and I'm the one who's willing to cop to all 3 of us doing it. So who do you think they're going to believe? Try me. And that's one thing I love about Manuela Santos. Okay, she is not afraid of any bitch. She looks sweet and innocent, but she will step to the girl with the most cachet in the school and say, I'm sorry, do you want to fight? And that's why she's my queen. Paige finally backs down and she's like, oh, you have such a bad attitude. Good luck trying to get on the Spirit Squad now. And Manny has decided that she's going to go confess. Basically, the episode ends with Manny and Emma reconciling on the steps of Manny's house. The B plot doesn't really matter. JT, Liberty, and Toby are trying to win a competition on some chip cans, and JT loses their winning ticket or whatever. The next episode, again, kind of doesn't matter, except that Ashley, Terry, and Paige are going to be a part of a group called PMS, where they sing a song at the lunchtime cabaret. But Paige is being controlling, and Ashley is also being controlling, because Ashley, wants to be a musician or whatever. And Terry has to kind of, keep the peace between the two of them. And they end up performing the song. It goes really well. Ashley is the lead singer because she's the HBIC of Degrassi at the time. Emma wants to do do an interpretive dance at the lunchtime cabaret that's all about poaching. And she wants Sean to do it with her because he's her boyfriend, but Sean is afraid of getting embarrassed, so he doesn't want to do it. But Toby, who still has a crush on Emma, volunteers as tribute. So the next episode, we have the first in the, like, naming convention of Degrassi The Next Generation. For Degrassi The Next Generation, all of the episodes are named after songs from the 1980s that are topically appropriate to what's going on. Because this one is called Under Pressure. It's exam time at Degrassi. We've gone through the entire school year, from summer to summer. And Sean is very anxious about his media immersion exam. He's super scared that he is going to fail and end up getting held back in the 7th grade for a second time. One thing I want to note, like, from my viewing of this series and the amount of times students end up getting held back, and also from things that I've learned from, like, my French classes, it seems like getting held back doesn't have quite as much stigma in countries other than the United States. It's not that it's destigmatized completely, but it's also that it's like, yeah, well, if you didn't meet the benchmarks, like, he missed a bunch of the end of the school year, so it's like, well, we're gonna hold you back. Whereas I honestly feel like in the US, like, there are so many people in this country who graduate high school without ever learning how to read. And that's both sad and incredibly emblematic of how we view the idea of somebody being held back. Understandably, Sean is like, I don't want to have to do 7th grade again, which I wouldn't want to have to do 7th grade for a third time either. At that point, I would. But anyway, so he is cramming for his media immersion exam with Emma, who's really good in the class, and Emma is also his girlfriend. At the beginning of the episode, they're at Sean's house for the first time. I'm pretty sure he lives in a trailer with his brother, Tracker. His parents aren't really in his life ever since they left Wasaga. Like, his brother is the one who takes care of him. Emma and his brother have seemed to be able to squash the beef that they had earlier in the season when they were fighting about her newspaper article. Imagine fighting with an 11-year-old, with a 12-year-old. That's embarrassing. But he is telling Emma that he likes that she is in Sean's life because she's such a good influence on him. He had gotten in trouble at his last school, but he doesn't seem to be getting in any kind of trouble now that he's with her. After he says that, she's like, what does he mean he had some troubles in the past? And there's been rumors going around the 7th grade that Sean knifed a guy, or he was, like, in prison for killing his dad, about him, because he's new, right? Emma finally asks him what exactly happened in Wasaga that led him to have to move to Toronto. So Sean tells her that when he was in 7th grade at his last middle school, he got into a fight with this guy that ended up so bad that he deafened the kid in one ear. And he got kicked out of school. He was in juvenile detention for a little bit. And then when he got out, he had missed too much class to be able to move from the 7th grade to the 8th grade. So Emma is like, that's interesting. Noted. Emma, I give her a lot of flack over the course of this series because she can be very annoying and self-centered and kind of like, she thinks she's so smart, but she's just like all the other girls. But in this moment, instead of like running screaming from his trailer, she's like, okay, I'm taking in this information. She doesn't judge him immediately. And I think also, like, him being 12 years old, like, children have impulse control issues, okay? Like, they need to get them checked out, and he probably needs to talk to a therapist and all that. But, like, I commend her for not immediately judging him, because it's not like he said he beat up his last girlfriend. Like, he said, I got into a fight with this kid at school, and I just, like, took it too far. That is what happened to Sean, and she's just like, gonna file that in the back of my mind in case it ever comes up again. Now, while this is all happening, Spinner really doesn't want to take his English exam because he's bad at English, so he's trying to get himself sick. That doesn't end up happening. He takes the exam, he passes it, it's fine, whatever. The main thing is that Sean is really worried about this media immersion exam. He goes to take the exam, he's 100% sure that he failed it, and then when Jimmy is walking past him in the hallway, Jimmy makes some sort of snide remark about Sean being stupid or whatever, and Sean gets all up in his face and he's like, what did you just say to me? They make an appointment to go fight in the alley behind the school at the end of the day because they've had enough of each other's crap over the course of this season. Sean is gonna go fight Jimmy, and everybody seems to know except Emma. When Emma finally finds out, she's like, oh no, I gotta stop him. Like, he can't get expelled again. Sean is all riled up. He's fucking pissed. He has impulse control problems, as we said, anger issues, whatever. He's outside in the alley with Jimmy and a smattering of other students who, you know, like, people always wanted to, like, watch the fight or whatever. Emma comes out and she's like, Sean, you can't do this. Like, you shouldn't do this. This isn't a good idea. She runs up to him. He's like, shut up, Emma. You dishonored my family and spat on the name of my bloodline, or whatever boys fight about when they're 12 years old. She runs up to him and she's like, don't do this. I'm pretty sure she like touches him or something, and then he turns around and pushes her into the ground. Interesting, because when he pushes her, there's very clearly fall leaves on the ground when this is supposed to be in May. I haven't questioned. They're also all wearing sweaters. Anyway, he pushes her down and she is like, oh, yeah, no. What we're not going to do is this. Domestic violence. Like, no. She's pretty much done with him. And Jimmy is like, you have so many problems controlling yourself that you even pushed your own girlfriend. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And Sean is absolutely ashamed of himself. Later on, Mr. Simpson comes up to him and tells him that he not only passed the media immersion exam, but he did pretty well. And Sean is embarrassed because he's like, oh fuck, I just ruined everything and I didn't even fail the exam. He tries to go find Emma and apologize to her about what happened. She is having none of it and she's like, this is done. Like, I can't do this with you anymore. What I will say, commending Emma especially, is she didn't judge him initially based off of his past behavior, but she did file it and say, okay, I've learned something about this boy, that he might have a lack of impulse control and anger issues, and let's see where that goes. Now, other people might be smart and say, if you beat someone up so bad that you deafened them in 1 year, maybe I shouldn't be dating you. But me and Emma, we're not in that camp of smarties. As soon as that anger, inability to control himself is turned onto her, that is where she draws the line immediately. It is amazing that a 12-year-old girl is self-possessed enough to say, no, I'm not going to let you treat me like this anymore. Like, she's not desperate for his love, his care, affection, attention, anything. Like, she just says, no, you did that thing and that was wrong and it was bad and this is done. The next episode we have is the final episode of season 1, and it is Jagged Little Pill by one Alanis Morissette, who may or may not be making an appearance later on in the series. This, I'm pretty sure, is like after the end of the school year. So Ashley, Paige, and Terry, or Ashley and Terry, I'm pretty sure, have an end of the school year slumber party every year. But this year, Ashley's mom and Toby's dad are going out of town for the weekend. So they tell them both that they can invite one friend over each. Of course, neither of them do that. And Ashley ends up inviting Terry and Paige. Toby ends up inviting T and Sean. And he's trying to figure out a way to get Manny and Emma to come over because Toby still has a crush on Emma. As Ashley, Terry, and Paige are in the house, Paige is trying to convince Ashley to have a party, and she basically is telling Ashley, like, come on, you know, you're such a wet blanket, you need to loosen up a little bit and live a little. So Ashley is like, oh, she's so right, like, I am a wet blanket, I never do anything that I need to just, like, let loose. For some reason, whatever Paige said to Ashley really gets under Ashley's skin. JT, being a dumbass, has brought ecstasy that his cousin gave him to this middle school slumber party, and he wants all the guys to take it and roll. And Sean is like, I'm not gonna take fucking ecstasy with a bunch of 12-year-olds in this, like, computer nerd's basement. Like, what the fuck? So he takes the ecstasy and he tells the boys that he's gonna go downstairs and cut it with something. Instead, when he gets downstairs, he sees that Ashley is in the kitchen, and he's like, everybody knows that she's responsible, Ashley Kerwin, you know? So he's like, JT brought ecstasy to this slumber party. You take it, flush it down the toilet. I'm going to give them some chewable vitamins or whatever. Tell them that that's the ecstasy and everything will be fine. So he is expecting Ashley to get rid of it. And instead, Ashley takes it. She is tired of being little Miss Goody Two-Shoes. And after she's taken it, I think right before she took it, she decided that it was a good idea to have a party. So Jimmy, and Spinner are coming over, and they're bringing a bunch of other people. So right after Ashley has taken the ecstasy, Jimmy gets there, and she's like, oh my god, she's just like fucked up on ecstasy. Or rather, I should say, the actress who's playing her, God bless her, is trying her best to act fucked up on ecstasy, but like she's 14, 15 years old. Like she probably hasn't done it yet in her life. So now everybody knows that this party is happening, and Toby and JT have managed to get Emma and Manny to come over, but they haven't told them that Sean is going to be there, and Emma wants nothing to do with Sean. So when Emma and Manny come over, Emma sees that Sean is in the house, and she's like, ugh, I don't want to deal with this, and she ends up leaving. Sean sees her see him, and sees that he was the reason that she decided to leave immediately, and he starts crying at the top of the stairs in Ashley's house. Ashley sees him crying, and she's like, oh my god, don't be sad. I'm on ecstasy. We all need to be happy. So she takes him into her room to kind of try and like cheer him up. He's telling her about what happened with Emma and how he screwed everything up and he's so sad and he hates himself and blah, blah, blah. And she, you know, how ecstasy, well, I don't know because I've never done ecstasy, but like I've heard that ecstasy makes people feel really touchy. So she starts kissing him and they start making out while her boyfriend Jimmy is downstairs. Then Ashley and Sean come out of her room. As they're coming out of the room, Jimmy is coming up the stairs and he sees that her hair is messed up and Sean's like clothes are a little disheveled and he's like, what the fuck just happened? He assumes that because again, Ashley's like goody two shoes and she's also fucked up on E. Like she's told Jimmy that she was on E. He assumes that Sean tried to take advantage of her. So he follows Sean and starts going after him. But then Ashley is like, no, he didn't try and take advantage of me. I wanted to make out with him, and I wanted to make out with him because you're so boring and you're trying to like ensnare me into this married relationship and we're just in the 8th grade. Like, I just want to play the field and get to know people and have some fucking fun. And she is berating Jimmy in front of this whole group of people, and Paige comes out and she's like, Ashley, you're acting like a hag. Like, stop. And Ashley's like, you think I'm acting like a hag? You think I'm a hag? And she reads Paige for filth. I mean, like, Paige is a bitch and did deserve it, but maybe not while Ashley was fucked up on ecstasy. And Ashley is just, like, going off, insulting everyone, and she's, you could say, ruined the vibe of the party. So Jimmy starts to get so uncomfortable that he leaves, and with him leaves everybody else. They all go, and Ashley's like, where's everyone going? It's a party. Like, we're having fun. We're on ecstasy. The next day, Ashley has her ecstasy hangover. I've heard that the day after an ecstasy roll, what is it? Ultimate depression, like deep depths of depression. And so she wakes up in that ecstasy hangover and she's like, oh God, what the fuck did I do? She can't quite remember what was happening. But Terry and Toby are at the house and they tell her everything that she did. She's like, I hope they can forgive me. Like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. But Spinner comes over and he has all of Ashley's stuff that she left at Jimmy's house. And he hands the box to Ashley and he's like, Jimmy doesn't want anything to do with you anymore. And Ashley breaks down sobbing, and that is the end of season 1.
That is going to be the end of that video. I had initially planned to do seasons 1 and 2 in one video. Then, as usual, I ended up talking for way too long. So the next Degrassi video will for sure be seasons 2 and 3. Maybe season 4 sprinkled in there if I have the energy to edit it. In the meantime, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for watching me talk about one of my favorite TV shows of all time. It's really been gratifying to be able to film the videos and then edit the videos and like relive this show in a different way again. If you like this video, please do not be afraid to give it a thumbs up. That really helps me find other people who might be interested in it. And if you like me or anything that I had to say today, please consider subscribing to my channel. I make videos about literally whatever I want to talk about. So you're going to get a large mixed bag of several different things over the course of this YouTube channel. I do want to say, like, This is the advantage of filming an outro after. Does anybody know how to screen record things from streaming services easily? Because if you didn't notice, some of the clips in this video looked a little janky, looked a little bit like they were filmed with a potato. Yeah, it's because I had to use other means with which to procure them. If there's no way to do it, I might just buy the series on Amazon or something and then use that, because there are certain clips that I'm like wanting to put in, but I can't. And it's fair use because I'm having a conversation about it and not just ripping the clips and posting them for my own financial gain, but whatever. That's gonna be it. I'm like rambling at this point. I tested positive for COVID yesterday. It's been 3 years and I've managed to escape the Rona, and it finally got me. So I'm a little sad about it and I'm a little under the weather. So yeah, again, please give this video a thumbs up and pray for me that at some point get accepted into the AdSense program, because I think I curse a little bit too much for them. I think they don't like that. But anyways, thank you again for watching this, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye!